Welcome to today's episode. I want to start from the beginning, not from ideas or systems, but from you. It's also 2026, and somehow we've been conditioned to accept switching on the digital universe and expect to be hooked. Well, guess what? I'm back, and now we build. Last time I checked, you're not a fish underwater, and neither am I. We are human beings. So let me begin. You are a soul in your body, a mind with a voice, a pulse and a breath. You are skin and bone, muscle and blood. You are a form of energy that must consume the fruits and resources of this earth to survive. You feel, you sense, you resonate, you adapt. And still, some of you were taught to even doubt this, that if it can't be measured, it isn't real, that if it can't be optimized, it isn't useful. But your presence held value long before any machine could track it. Machines exist, yes, but you are not a machine. You are a miracle. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean that statistically, biologically, existentially. You are a one time, never to be repeated configuration of energy, intelligence, and matter. And yet, somehow, you've been convinced to behave like a cog. I say this because many people in positions of power have forgotten what a human is. Some don't even care to know, except when they can simulate care. Not because they're too busy, but because they believe power must be void of emotion. So they trained themselves to forget, because over time they realized to truly care would mean they'd have to act. And the easier choice became say nothing, do nothing. This is how we begin exploring the full intelligence of presence. Leadership is not a goal. Leadership is not a metric. Leadership is a state of being. A state that lifts and improves everything around it. Not men who never witnessed their own children growing, not women taught to outsource their own presence and dim the light of others, not employers who reward the disappearance of life in the name of work. The human mind is malleable. You can be trained to believe anything if it's presented convincingly enough. So eventually it's forgotten. But before I go on, I need to say this clearly. Much of what we know about the human body was learned through incomprehensible suffering. It came from people who were not protected. It came through cruelty that should never be repeated. So I honor their lives because the only way they can be honored now is if what was learned is used to protect life and the generations that come after. So let's return to the first truth. Every human being began inside another human being. That's a biological fact. You were shaped inside an environment that asked nothing of you except to exist as you are. This means you didn't have to perform there. You didn't have to produce. You didn't have to optimize. Your body formed itself in relationship to its environment. And then, before anyone asked you to be strong or useful or good, your body did something extraordinary. Without being told, hard work pays off. Your body already knew what to do. Because to be born, your body had to initiate its own system without anyone telling it what to do. Before your first breath, before your eyes opened, before your first sound, your blood reversed course. Your heart rewired its own rhythm. Your body powered itself into life to exist in a new environment, Earth. No one told it how. No system trained it. No one rewarded it. Your body just knew. That's what a human being is. A living system designed to adapt to environment, to regulate, to respond, to grow in relationship. Not a machine, not a resource, not a sacrifice, not an experiment. So, when systems are built to erase rest, presence, development, and care, they're not asking humans to be better. They're asking humans to stop being human. So, I'm here to remind you before your first thought, before you spoke your first word, before you learned languages or ideologies, you entered Earth as a human, not to conquer it, but to exist in relationship with it. I've already spoken about some of the basics: food, air, water, technology. But what about this? People work in extremes, in freezing cold, in sweltering heat, in spaces so tight they forget how to breathe, under lights so harsh they forget whether it's day or night. We call it normal, but that doesn't make it right. Your body was not built to be a cog in someone else's machine. It was built to adapt, yes, but not to be abused in the name of resilience. So we will begin with the body, the one some of you never notice until it's too late. Tell me something. When you were born, you had no teeth, and that made sense. You didn't need them because you drank milk. Doesn't matter the source: synthetic milk, cow's milk, human milk. Your body needed nourishment, and your mouth adapted. But as you grew, your needs changed. You needed to chew. You needed to tear. You needed to break down food to survive. So your body gave you teeth. Not for decoration, for function. Because being human means being able to feed yourself. So why then, in adulthood, do the systems you live in treat teeth like accessories? Are they not part of the human body? Would a lion be a lion without its teeth? Would a cobra be a cobra without its fangs? Would a piranha be feared without its bite? Would a crocodile dominate the river without its jaws? Then what is a human without the ability to chew? You speak about healthcare, you speak about human rights, and yet millions walk around with rotting teeth, missing molars, pain when they eat. Because the cost of treatment is treated like elective luxury. You pay for the ability to chew. You pay for survival like it's a cosmetic upgrade. You build billion-dollar industries for eyelashes, for injectables, for surgeries, but let people lose their teeth because they couldn't afford to save them. You commodified the body so deeply, you forgot what it was built to do. And the worst part? You judge the ones whose mouths show the signs of struggle, but never question the systems that force them to choose between food or fillings, housing, transportation, or root canals. You want to know how far we strayed? Teeth. The ability to eat, the ability to live, and it's still not considered healthcare. And if someone else's clarity, discipline, or depth feels like a threat to your position, then it's not their presence that needs questioning, it's your absence of self. Because someone else shining doesn't dim your light unless you were never rooted in your own to begin with. Since the beginning of civilizations, populations have largely been ruled by men. Men who didn't toil the soil to grow their own food, men who couldn't start a fire, men who never learned to boil water, men who didn't know how to thread a needle or fetch their own drinking water, men whose skin never felt the rain, men who feasted on animals they didn't know what they ate, where they slept, or how they lived. Men who never hammered a nail or laid a brick to build the walls of their own home. And men who wanted to conquer land by destroying the people who already lived on it. And the few women who ruled, most weren't much better because they were often forced to adopt the same structures of power. And if that feels harsh, good, because this isn't about shame. It's about remembering the truth of what was forgotten when power became more about control than care. And today, while some of you chase other worlds, building rockets, programming simulations, naming craters on planets you've never stepped foot on, here's the truth. Most of you have never even met the earth you were born on. You don't know the trees outside your own window. You don't know the seasons the clouds pass through. You don't know the waters under your own city. You don't even know the rhythm of your own breath. And still, you say you're ready to leave? 80% of the ocean remains unexplored. Over half the species on this planet are still unnamed. And the very soil that feeds you, you walk across it like it owes you something. You want to greet aliens. But you've never listened to the hum of wasps boring into the soil. You've never sat still long enough to feel life wake up at night. You've never felt your heartbeat slow beside a river. You've never touched moss with your own palms. Moss. Sounds simple, right? Until you find out that there are over 12,000 species discovered and thousands more still unknown. To most people, it's just a patch of green. To Earth, it's a memory system. Moss is one of the first plants to colonize land, a carbon sequesterer, a water sponge, a habitat for invisible life, a biological signal of air purity. Moss drinks not through roots, but through mist, through rain, through the breath of the world itself. Some mosses grow in ancient forests. Others bloom between sidewalk cracks, and some survive on stone. But you stepped over it, or worse, you never even noticed. Because somewhere along the way, you were taught that intelligence meant looking up at the stars you'll never reach, instead of down at the life still growing quietly beneath your feet. You want to build new worlds, but most of you can't even build a relationship with your own taste buds. You forgot how to be in awe. You forgot that to belong somewhere, you must first care for it. You don't need more data. You need to remember how to feel. Because whatever you're running from, you're dragging the rest of us down with you. And let's be honest, it wasn't that you didn't see me. You did. You saw the discipline. You saw the kindness, the clarity, the excellence, the way I carried what couldn't be taught. And instead of honoring it, you tried to manage it, contain it, control it, erase it. Because excellence in someone you can't dominate feels threatening when your power is performative, outdated, and built on illusion. But I don't exist to make you feel in control. I exist to be real, a human being who knows this world is too beautiful to be destroyed by archaic thinking. So, to those who looked down from their titles, their platforms, their pulpits, and thought they were more real than me, power doesn't make you human. Position doesn't make you right. Control doesn't make you whole. And writing a post or a book doesn't make you an expert. Only presence does. Only remembering does. I've seen what insecurity looks like when it hides behind performance, behind suits, behind titles, behind credentials. I've seen what fear looks like when it dresses up as leadership, as care, as love. And I've learned no amount of money or metrics or authority can outshine the truth of a being who remembers who they are. So, no, I don't need your seat at the table. The table and the chair are kept on the floor by gravity. Both were built with resources harvested from the earth. No table and no chair is capable of holding light. Only air, water, and earth know how to carry light without cages. I feel that air in my body, and I feel the water that powers my breath. My breath is all I have and all I am. And I'm here to remind you you cannot live without air. Not for an hour, not for 10 minutes, not even for 5 minutes. This is the Light Up podcast series. Seconds of Impact begins the moment you feel your own breath. When I moved from the equator to the dead of winter, I thought I went to a cold desert. I felt the shape of my own lungs. I had to learn how to breathe in dense, fuel scented air. What air do you breathe? What sense does your lungs feel? What rhythm does your body run on? See if you can find out. That's yours to connect with. Notice when you try to harm someone how your breath changes. Notice how your body feels. Notice how your day and nights flow. Oh, and the story that Earth is disposable, that progress means elsewhere, that humanity is only worth saving once it's digitized, optimized, or exported to another planet. Well, let me tell you, your nervous system has a threshold you've never even discovered. And doing nothing while injustice is rampant has never created peace. Imagine just walking, running, swimming, and climbing for a cause. Even some 2-year-olds can do that before they've even learned a full sentence. Tell me something. Why is it when you were a newborn, your cries were met with patience? You had no words. You had no explanation. You didn't say, "Please, I'm hungry," or "Excuse me, I'm uncomfortable." No, you wailed, you screamed, you shivered. And yet someone still came. They paused what they were doing. They listened. They responded. You were held because you were seen as worthy of care, even without language, even without reason, even without speed. But now you get behind a machine with 4 wheels, or worse, one with 18, and suddenly everyone is in your way. You press the horn, you curse at the delay, you glare through glass windows at strangers you've never met. You forget that every body in front of you was once a baby just like you, cared for, cradled, crying for safety in a world too loud. So, when did you decide their pace was your enemy? When did you start confusing movement with meaning? When did the same child who once had the luxury of time grow into an adult who denies it to everyone else? You were not born fast. You were not born efficient. You were not born for speed. You were born to feel your way into the world. And if you can't remember that, if you can't extend patience to the body in front of you, the person in line, the pedestrian crossing, the driver merging, then you've forgotten what it means to be human. And let's not pretend this is just about manners. This is about entitlement. This is about ego behind the wheel. You say you care about the planet. You post about climate change. You talk about sustainability. But then you burn fuel like your minutes are more important than the planet's lifespan. Cars don't run clean at 30 over the limit. Engines aren't optimized for your impatience. You're not just speeding, you're draining resources that took millions of years to form. For what? To be first in line for coffee? To save 5 minutes on a route that could have shown you the sky? You want to be powerful. Try slowing down in a culture that demands acceleration. You think your rush proves something? That it makes you important? It doesn't. Speed without presence is destruction in fast forward. Impatience with the world is proof you've forgotten how to live in it. So next time you grip the wheel, rev the engine, claim the lane like a throne, ask yourself, would you treat your former self that way? The newborn you once were? The one who needed time? The one who didn't earn patience, but received it anyway? Because if your strength requires speed, but collapses at the pace of care, then it's not strength at all. It's a symptom of forgetting. And that's the real traffic jam. Finally, remember this. When most humans enter the Earth's atmosphere, they are cleaned, wrapped in cloth, and hugged like a precious child who needs care. But in the adult world, especially in countries where financial markets dominate, care disappears. There are properties, massive industrial spaces, warehouses, and commercial buildings where landlords collect rent but won't even shovel the snow. Where cities ignore broken sidewalks and flooded roads. Where infrastructure rot becomes normal. Where locals and tenants are left to slip on ice, drag carts over cracked concrete, and walk through puddles of neglect. Why? Because the people profiting refuse to take responsibility for the land itself. It's not just disrespect. It's not just laziness. It's legal negligence. It's adults showing they are incapable of even caring for the ground people walk on. And it's one more way that care has been outsourced. And one more thing. To those who sleep on the floor, not for a night, not for a photo, but because you're not allowed to return to your own home after your labor's been extracted, or because the systems you carry collapse beneath you, let me tell you, sleeping on the floor is not glamorous. It's uncomfortable. It's cold. It's vulnerable. You feel your joints take the full weight of your body. And those who live that reality don't talk about it. They don't post for points. They don't ask for pity. They just try to rest in peace with whatever dignity they have left. Because they're not building a brand. They're surviving systems that treat sleep like a privilege. But the question begs an answer. Why do we still build systems that require people to sleep on the floor? How many billion-dollar mattress ads do you see? How many high-tech sleep trackers, weighted blankets, adjustable memory foam beds? How many Instagrammable bedrooms with silk sheets, ambient lighting, Himalayan salt lamps? And still, people sleep on wood, on concrete, on thin mats over cold tile, on bare floors, rough carpet, flattened cardboard, on surfaces that bruise, that echo every shift of the body, that don't give, that don't warm, that don't protect. Surfaces where joints carry too much, where breath stays shallow, where sleep becomes endurance, not restoration. Ask yourself, how much does the bedding industry actually love humanity? Because comfort clearly sells, but it was never made for everyone. Now let's talk logistics. A pair of shoes can be delivered in 24 hours, a t shirt from a continent away, tracked in real time. Click, ship, arrive. But try moving a human being. Try transporting a person safely across borders. Try accessing healthcare in a city you didn't grow up in. Try relocating for survival, not luxury. Suddenly, everything slows down. The machinery stops working. The systems stall. The answers vanish. Why is the movement of products optimized, but the movement of people abstracted? Why do clothes fly faster than care? Why are buzzing machines prioritized over the bodies that protect breath? If we're so advanced, why can we ship electronics with precision but not guarantee shelter? Why do goods move with GPS accuracy but humans still beg for a bed? We say humans love comfort, and it's true, but comfort was never denied to products. It was denied to people. Everything we've built has been for comfort. But again, I ask, comfort for who? Because the truth is, people don't leave their homes unless they have to. They don't risk oceans or beg for visas or sell heirlooms to cross deserts just to explore new opportunities. They leave because staying became more dangerous than going. They leave chasing the marketed promise of a better land because the same systems that extracted from them never built room for them to rest. So, no, sleeping on the floor isn't noble. It's not a viral moment. It's not a minimalistic aesthetic. It's a massive design failure. And if you're using it to prove your humility, you've missed the point. Because those who sleep on the floor don't need your performance. They need systems that weren't built to break them. They need structures that don't collapse when they try to rest. They need a world that doesn't turn survival into spectacle. Because if you can't be bothered to maintain the ground people move through, you're not building. You're profiting off preventable harm. Let that perspective rise to the top. Also, remember this, just because you're capable of doing something doesn't mean you should. Before you ever spoke a word, you had to learn that it's not safe to move in this world without knowing how to feel, how to touch, how to eat and drink safely, how to listen to discomfort, and how to care for the body that carries you. And also keep your body clean for the life it holds. Because presence isn't something you earn, it's something you remember. If you're alive today, it's because someone took initiative for you. Before you even had a word for thank you, someone was already feeding you. Someone was clothing you, bathing you, watching you sleep, protecting the womb you formed in or the body that carried it. They warned you about fire. They kept you from poison. They caught you when you fell. So now tell me, would you have wanted your first caretaker to be less experienced? Would you have felt safer with someone who didn't know better? Of course not. You trusted them because they knew what you didn't, because they could take initiative. And yet, as an adult, you attack those very traits in others. You dismiss the wise. You humiliate the seasoned. You push out the ones who see clearly just to make room for those who don't challenge your comfort. But tell me this, would the child you once were, the one who wailed, who shivered, who couldn't speak, Would that child have survived if someone had plotted to remove your caretaker? If someone had schemed to isolate you, to push out the very hands that kept you alive? Would you have called that leadership? Or would you have cried louder? Would you have felt the betrayal in your bones? Because when you're an infant, survival isn't a job you can apply for. It's a gift you receive from those who choose to act when you cannot. So explain to me, why as adults do you reward the ones who perfect that betrayal? Why is constructive dismissal, the strategic erasure of care, treated as ambition? Why do you praise those who isolate the seasoned, cut off the competent, and undermine the ones who know how to hold fire? What kind of adult do you think you became if you cheer for the collapse of those who once would have saved your life? Why does the same child who was protected by experience grow up to hate experience? Why does that child become the adult who tries to destroy the very people who could have protected more? This isn't just about corporations. This isn't just about politics. This is families. This is friend groups. This is the echo chamber you built to avoid remembering where you came from. So tell me, what are you trying to protect? What mediocrity are you so desperate to preserve that anyone who threatens it, even if they do so with care, with clarity, with courage, must be punished? Let's call it what it is. It's not leadership. It's not growth. It's ego rot. You want to talk about legacy. Start with how you treat the ones who know more than you do. Because the child you once were didn't survive because of silence, mediocrity, or passivity. You survived because someone knew better and chose to act. So if you hate that now, maybe you never wanted to grow. Maybe you just wanted to be the one who got fed without ever having to feed anyone else. But the ones who really grow, they become what they needed. They don't silence the fire, they pass it on. And if you don't believe me, ask yourself this: why does the world bow in awe at the passing of fire to represent the highest performance of the human body and human potential? Why, at the opening of the Olympics, do we rise to our feet for the torchbearer, not for winning, but for simply carrying the flame? Why does every nation watch as one human passes the fire to the next, not as a threat, but as a rite of reverence? That flame doesn't pass itself. It's carried through thousands of hands, miles of terrain, through wind, rain, resistance, by people who trained, prepared, and showed up. So explain to me, why is it that we revere this ritual on the world stage, but punish it in our workplaces, in our families, in our communities? When a person takes initiative, when they bring the fire, why do you call it arrogance, not excellence? Why do you mock the discipline, undermine the clarity, try to extinguish the spark? Make it make sense. Because even the world knows excellence is not selfish. Fire is not to be hoarded. It is to be carried. It is to be shared. It is to be passed. And only those with strength, with clarity, with inner discipline can carry it without burning everything down. So, what are you doing with your fire? Are you hiding it? Snuffing out the sparks in others? Or finally ready to become what you once needed? To carry what you once received, to give what saved you. That's the only relay worth running. And you've already been handed the flame. See you in the next one.